Good evening. He took the one small step that was mankind's greatest leap in history. Tonight, Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon, has died aged 82. His family said they were heartbroken that he has passed away after complications following heart surgery. His former colleague, Buzz Aldrin, the second man on the moon, described him as a true American hero and the best pilot I ever knew. Our Washington correspondent Robert Moore now on a private man with a unique place in history.
America is tonight mourning one of its truly iconic figures, the fearless test pilot who became NASA's most celebrated astronaut.
Ignition sequence start.
Neil Armstrong's, perhaps mankind's, greatest adventure began on July the 16th, 1969. 4 days later, it was Armstrong who became the first human to step onto another world, uttering one of the most memorable phrases of all time.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
As these extraordinary images were beamed back, his fame was guaranteed. And on his return to Earth, he was showered with honours and received the gratitude of a nation. Later, watched by President Nixon, he spoke of the plaque he had left behind at the moon landing site.
Perhaps in the third millennia, a wayward stranger will read that plaque at Tranquility Base.
In the years after he left NASA, he rarely granted interviews. But he did join his fellow Apollo 11 astronauts to mark the 40th anniversary. Not in their cramped capsule, but in the Oval Office.
Three iconic figures, three genuine American heroes.
The cryptic Armstrong speculated about history and the future.
History is a sequence of random events and unpredictable choices, which is why the future is so difficult to foresee. But you can try.
Above all, he loved flying, from gliders to supersonic jets, and his narrow escapes were legendary. This was Armstrong practicing on an early version of a lunar landing module. It was about to spin out of control, and he ejected with just half a second to spare. Few who watched television that day in 1969 will forget the pictures. Millions of people around the world mesmerized as Armstrong and his fellow astronaut Buzz Aldrin took those remarkable steps. America will never forget the man who left his mark, quite literally, on space exploration.
Well, Robert joins us now. Well, understandably, there are further tributes coming out there tonight, aren't there, Robin?
Yes, as you might expect, tributes are beginning to pour in for Neil Armstrong. A statement has just been released from the White House, from President Obama, in which he says Neil Armstrong was among the greatest of American heroes, not just of his time, but of all time. He delivered a moment of human achievement, President Obama went on to say, that will never be forgotten. And Buzz Aldrin, his fellow astronaut, said he will greatly miss the world's foremost aviation and space pioneer. I think what was most striking about Neil Armstrong was, for a moment in July 1969, he was unquestionably the most famous man in the world, but he never cashed in on that fame. He never sought political office, or he simply kind of went into a moment of privacy. He taught engineering at a university and took great pride in his contribution to space exploration.
Thanks very much, Robert.